Most people think being a caregiver means you sit with someone, maybe watch a little TV, and that's the job. I hear it all the time. So you just kind of hang out with my dad, right? Or why am I paying someone just to sit with mom all day? That could not be further from what actually happens in a caregiver's day. This is something nobody sees. I'm Chrysler, and this is Right at Home Long Beach, where we talk about senior care, aging, and how to help people you love stay safe and independent at home. So let's start with what the morning actually looks like for a caregiver. Say a caregiver walks in at 8 a.m. Before anything else, before good morning, before coffee, they're doing a scan. How is their client or person they're taking care of today doing today? Does he or she seem more confused than yesterday? Is there a smell, a sound, something off in the house that wasn't off yesterday? That's happening in the first 30 seconds before a single word gets said out loud. Then comes the medications. And I want to be clear about this one because families get it wrong constantly. Caregivers in the state of California aren't dispensing medication. That's outside their scope, and a good agency is really strict about that guideline. What they are doing is reminding, watching that the pill actually goes down, watching for a reaction, tracking whether a refill is coming up before it runs out. That sounds simple. It's not that simple when someone's on 8 medications across 3 times a day at different times, and their memory isn't what it used to be. And if your loved one has dementia, this is where the vigilance genuinely never stops. The Alzheimer's Association reports that 6 in 10 people living with dementia will wander at some point. 6 in 10. That's not a rare just in case scenario. That's something a caregiver is watching for constantly. Is the front door locked? Did she just get quiet in a way that usually means she's about to head for the door? Is he trying to go home when he's already standing in his own living room? That's not sitting there. That's actively working and taking care of a loved one for you. That's active supervision every single minute, where anything happens or not. Now, stick with me here. The next part is the one people really don't picture when they think about this job, this caregiving job. So let's talk about the physical side of this job, because I think this is where people are the most disconnected from reality. Transferring someone from, let's say, a bed to a wheelchair or a wheelchair to the toilet isn't just helping them out. There's a real technique to it. Potentially, you're using a gait belt, proper positioning, bracing your own body while protecting theirs. You do it wrong and somebody can fall accidentally. The CDC reports that 1 in 4 adults over 65 fall every year, and falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in this age group. That's exactly why this job, this part of the job, matters. Every single transfer is a moment where an injury could happen if it isn't done right, multiple times a day, every day. And then there's bathing. I want to say this plainly because it deserves to be said. Helping someone bathe who used to be completely independent, who maybe changed your diaper once upon a time, and now needs help with their own, that is one of the hardest things to give and receive with dignity. A good caregiver does it in a way that protects a person's sense of self, narrating what they're doing, giving them control over what they still can control, and not rushing it. That takes patience. Most people don't realize is a skill. It's physically demanding and emotionally demanding at the exact same time. And then you move on to the next task as a caregiver like it was nothing. Here's the part people underestimate the most. Honestly, companion care. Just sitting there with someone, having a conversation, playing cards, a puzzle, games. People hear that and assume it's an easy shift. Actually, let me back up because mental health matters. For a lot of clients we work with, that caregiver is the only person they'll talk to that entire day. The only one who asks how they're really doing and actually waits for their answer and listens. I've seen caregivers become the person a client waits for by the door. Somebody who remembers their late husband's name without being told twice, who knows not to bring up the daughter who doesn't call anymore. That's not nothing. That's a real human relationship, built one shift at a time, and it takes an emotional toll too, because caregivers will get attached. They get attached. We're human. And sometimes they're the ones sitting there at the very end. In my experience working with families here in Long Beach and the surrounding communities, the caregivers who last in this work are the ones who let themselves feel that, instead of trying to shut it off or be apathetic. They care. This next part is probably the most useful thing in this whole video I want to talk about. If you're trying to understand why this caregiving job is so exhausting. And we're in LA, we're in Los Angeles. So think about this. A lot of caregivers aren't with just one client all day. Some are seeing two clients, sometimes more in a single day. Sometimes they're doing graveyard shifts and then they show up for a morning shift. Picture this, a caregiver finishes a morning shift. Transfers are done, breakfast made, medications reminded, and then they get in the car and drive from, say, Bixby Knolls over to Lakewood, or out toward Downey, fighting traffic on Del Amo or the 405 the whole way. And when they walk into that second home, there's no ramp-up period. New client, new routine, new medications, new personality, new environment. Sometimes it's a completely different family dynamic waiting on the other side of that door. And they have to be fully present again immediately. There's no real decompression time built into any of this. You're mentally switching gears in the car or even taking public transportation, and then you go back to full attention the second you knock on that door or you walk in. That's the part that wears people down over time. Not one hard task, but a hard task back to back all day with driving stitched in, LA traffic, mind you, where you don't actually get time to rest. And I'll be honest with you about this part, this next section I want to talk about, because it's real. Caregivers often walk straight into family dynamics that have nothing to do with them. Another sibling thinks she's fine and gets defensive about it. Let's say dad won't admit he needs a caregiver at all, even though he's fallen twice in the last 2 weeks. So now the caregiver has to earn trust with someone who didn't want them there in the first place, who's looking to fire them. I know this. Or a daughter who lives out of state calls a caregiver 5 times a day because she feels guilty she's not the one doing it herself. A caregiver ends up holding all of that. The client's actual needs on a day-to-day basis or each shift, plus the family's stress, plus their own patience, usually without anyone thanking them for that part specifically, because most families don't even realize it's happening. The National Alliance for Caregiving found that nationally, 39% of family caregivers report high emotional stress from caregiving, and nearly two-thirds report at least moderate to high stress. Caregivers are absorbing a piece of that strain too, every day, in someone's home, even though they're brought in professionally, on top of everything else on their list. At Right at Home Long Beach, this is actually one of the first things I want families to understand. A caregiver's day is full, physically and emotionally, in ways that don't always show up from the outside looking in. I didn't even mention their personal lives as a caregiver yet. So when we match a caregiver with the client, we're not just filling a slot on a schedule. We're trying to set them both up so all of this, the transfers, the medications, the emotional weight, the family dynamics, actually works on a day-to-day basis. If you're in the Long Beach area or surrounding cities and want to understand what real support at home could look like for your family, we're always happy to talk through it with you. Give us a call. I really hope, and I made this video because I just want to give a clearer picture of what caregivers actually do every day. Because I see this a lot, people think it's an easy job, and then they tell me, well, why am I paying you for this? They're just sitting here, as an example. I hear that a lot, but it takes skill and effort and an emotional toll on someone to handle this. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, so that you can learn more about aging in place and keeping your loved ones safe in the home.